Now I'm intrigued to know what really happened.
Who knows?
Okay, we are preparing to live stream right now. Should take a second. And we are live. Okay, amazing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session with Aces of Ventures. I'm your host, Joe. And today we have a super interesting speaker. But before I'm going to introduce you to him, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Aces of Ventures for a quick 2 minutes so we can stay up to date with the project and know everything about it. So, Aces of Ventures is a global decentralized entrepreneurship accelerator. Just by the words, you can understand what we do. We empower entrepreneurs, we guide them through their path, and we make sure they get fast access to funds. In opposition to the traditional way of getting funds and getting into incubators and accelerators. Why is it called Aces of Ventures, and why do we adopt the card-themed theme in this NFT project? Because just like in life, we all have cards to play. We all have decisions to make. We all have some actions to take. And these things makes us aces. We are the people who lead our own way, who pave our own roads. So you guys are aces. I am one. Robert is one, our co-founder. And James, our amazing guest, is one too. So to talk about the exact meaning of our cards, of our NFT cards that will bring you a lot of benefits. As you can see here, we have the Jack card, which is the orange card to your left. The holders of this card will enable them to submit their pitch to our community. The second two cards, the Kings and the Queens, will both have a say on who gets to pitch every week to our community. They get to pick their top 5 candidates. Both the King and the Queen do that, but because we believe in empowering women, only the holders of the Queen card will be able to ask a question during the pitches, which is something very specific and very cool. Now, and these are the rest of the cards, and all the community members, everyone who holds an NFT will be able to have a say on who wins in our pitching competitions. Now, why do we have the pitching competitions? What are we aiming to do? We will get to that in a second. But before, the two people behind this amazing project are our co-founders, Andre Abiawad and Robert Tabet. Andre Abiawad is an entrepreneurship trainer and speaker. He has trained over 1,000 entrepreneurs in over 50 countries worldwide and has over 10 years of experience. Robert is a serial entrepreneur with 6 established businesses and is leading the industry in skincare products and is competing with L'Oreal, a local company. Now, our team is made of over 23 individuals. We have directors, designers, storytellers, and developers, and we even have a few investors on board. What is the challenge behind Aces of Ventures? It is to have $1 million rewarded to over 100 entrepreneurs. I know this may seem like a big number to you, but I'm gonna exactly tell you how we will be distributing them. So the thing is, we will have $5,000 allocated to idea entrepreneurs, who are entrepreneurs who just have ideas and did not yet build a business. $10,000 will be awarded to MVP entrepreneurs who have a minimum viable product or something that is getting them sales or getting them moving. And lastly, $40,000 will be allocated to growth entrepreneurs who have established their businesses, are getting sales, and are looking to scale up and go to the next level. What we're doing right now is part of something amazing. It is to bring 100 speakers from over 50 countries to bring us tons of value and tons of benefits to our community. Some of the utilities of holding an Ace of Ventures will be access to the burning pit. The burning pit is where you burn your NFT for good, which means you just give it away in return for perks and unique deals, such as an iPhone, a trip, or a cash reward. You can also hold your card without burning it. You can stake it and get rewarded for many deals and perks as well. And one of our favorite utility for our NFT project is the fusion, where if you have two cards, you can merge them together to have more benefits, including access to over 1,300 lounges worldwide at airports. And lastly, we are always looking for partnerships, people who will, brands who will sponsor our posts and events in return for distributing perks and benefits to our holders. One last deal we made was with Live FX Exchange. They gave us 30 vouchers worth $30 each to our active community members in our crypto talk. And with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation about Aces of Ventures so we can get to our session. Our guest today is a digital content expert. We connected on LinkedIn not long ago. His name is James Lawrenson. He's going to introduce himself in more details. And guys, let me tell you, this guy is a genius in content. He knows how to get leads. I was a victim of his strategy. So let's hear all about it. Hello, James.
Hi, Jean. Thank you for that intro. Thank you so much for having me. This was really, really exciting. Hi to everyone who's listening. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. And there's a good presence. I won't spend a lot of time introducing myself. We can figure it out as we get talking. But as essentially, I've been involved in content for over 10 years in various forms, from branding and marketing, advertising, to creative, to podcasting, and more recently, learning design, learning experience design. So content is my game, and I've become passionate about using content to move the needle in whatever way makes sense for entrepreneurs or for businesses. And so I'm really excited to just share some of the insights that I've come across in the last couple of years and months.
Yeah, I'm excited to listen, and I bet most of the people here are excited as well. And by the way, guys, just if you stay till the end of the session, you will have access to get a free NFT, but I will not tell you how. You will have to stay till the end of the session. And by the way, James, in your bio on LinkedIn, you wrote that you are a content alchemist, or however you pronounce it. As far as I know, these people mix chemical substances in order to get a final result. How does this work with what you do?
So when it comes to excellent content, and I mean like A-grade content, it's really about the science of taking in all the different ingredients, like graphic design and concept and brilliant copywriting and base content and ideas. And I think for me, being a content alchemist means having access to all of those skills and all of those pieces and being able to mold them together into something that is far better than the sum of its parts, where that final piece is something that you kind of just sigh and go, wow, that is not even, if I'd put that together, I wouldn't have imagined this. And so to me, a content alchemist is someone who can create something amazing out of seemingly uninteresting parts or bland or used parts, and create something beautiful and really creative.
Yeah, definitely. And did you always know that you were going to get to this, or did you have previous experiences where you changed your direction or changed the way you did things? Yeah,
that's an interesting question. I think I'm still figuring it out. I think at this stage in my career, I realized that paths aren't as linear as you think, or as you were taught about in school or university. And I think what's amazing about being a solopreneur or being new to industries and being sort of a curious learner all your life is that there's never an end point, there's never an end goal. So I realized as I was studying copywriting and advertising and creative thinking that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be working with the best of the best to create, the best content and the best outcomes that I could. But never would I have dreamed that I would lead learning teams and meet with clients from all around the world and work in video and podcasting. Like none of those things, were even at the top of my mind when I was younger. So I didn't dream up where I am, and I'm still interested to see where I'm going to go in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think this is the beauty of it, that we never reach an end point. We just always keep going, keep trying new things, and just seek new experiences. Now, James, you are somewhere where a lot of us want to be. So was it a decision to become a solopreneur or not?
Yeah. I think that was the turning point for me, and it's not for everyone. So let me preface all of what I'm going to say for that. It's not for everyone. Being an employee and earning a paycheck and doing a great job is absolutely perfect if that's where you want to be. I just found, as I worked through various agencies and various companies, that I was taking on more responsibility. I was running all the aspects of a project, from financing to project management to content to quality assurance, the whole 360 underneath the umbrella of companies. And I started to wonder, if I'm taking all this responsibility and all this accountability, why don't I just try it for myself? And worst case scenario, it doesn't work. But best case scenario, I learn a whole lot about what it means to be independent and to take on that kind of responsibility. It's kind of, we'll have lots of entrepreneurs listening here. There's a trial by fire. You have to go through it to get the insights. You have to burn a little bit to know what it's really all about. And I think in that moment when I realized, there's a lot more than I can learn, and I can progress a lot faster if I take it on for myself, then I couldn't look back. And now that's where I'm at. I can't look back at the jobs that I had, the companies that I had, and say, I wish I was there, because it's not the same universe that I'm in.
Yeah, definitely. So your previous experience and working with agencies, with companies, must have helped you at least figure out the type of skills that you need to be able to continue off on your own.
Yeah.
But when you took that leap, how did you figure out how to organize yourself, to organize your work, to how many clients to take on at the same time? And with that, I just want you as well to explain to us what exactly you do and how do you proceed with it?
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of things to unpack there. So I think what I found, as I was saying, that like in being my own boss, already in the companies and in the places that I worked, meant that I had a view of what operations can look like. And I was constantly feeding into ways to tweak and better the way that we were doing work. And some of those ideas went forward, some of them didn't, some of it didn't make sense in that context. And when I found that I could run my own sort of independent adventure, I am a one-man agency. And so I took all of those lessons and insights with me into my day-to-day operations. So I'm really, really strict about tracking my hours, about who I talk to and how I talk to them. I always have agendas for meetings. There's just small tools and tricks that you can use every day that take your optimization up 10-20% at a time. And another example of that, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, is also just the tools that you're using. So for me, I'm a big Miro fan, depending how you say the brand name, but I use the online whiteboarding space of Miro to organize my thoughts, to talk to my clients and to prospective clients in a way that is way more conversational and collaborative. Another tool that I use often is Loom, and that's a recording software that you can plug into Chrome, and it allows me to do asynchronous communication. So if I need to talk to colleagues, subcontractors, or clients, I can do a whole 5-minute presentation, send it through to them, and it's as if they're watching me. So trying not to fill your day with too many meetings and getting caught up in all the some of the vanity stuff, even being in LinkedIn and seeing who's liking my pages, who's sending me inbox messages. Those things feel good, but it doesn't mean you're making traction. Traction is the work. I think that's been a big and important learning. You need, you can do a lot of things up front. You can put out content, you can create a website, you can talk to lots of people, but unless you can translate that into actual paid work, it's just fluff. It's just nothing. And so that's the key there. Do the content, do the upfront work, put your operations in place, but then do the work. You have to do the work to prove the value.
Yeah, 100%, man. I totally agree. And we can, by the way, take questions from our participants here, or we can leave them till the end. But I wanted to take this question right now because I feel its context just is perfect with what we're talking about. So someone asked you that they are too afraid to quit their job. Should they get a client first? Will it help?
That's a really good question. I think, context matters. It matters where you are in your career. It matters what you're wanting to do. It matters who's in your network. And so, we can't go one by one on who's got what and where. I think the most important thing, and so many people have said it in the past, is your network is your net worth. So absolutely, if you can find a client that's willing to take you on, from the beginning, even if it's just one client and they agree to work with you for, a few months, that is a great start. But if you're willing to take the risk and you know that you have people that trust you and you trust them, I'd say still go for it. Again, it depends if you've got a mortgage to pay, if you've got kids at school, if you've got debt, like you need to make your decisions. But I would say if you feel like you've got a strong backing, if you've got a network and you've got inroads with clients already, then that's a good thing to cultivate before you stop your full-time work. And then you double down. Once you're in, then you need to spend the same amount of time, if not more, than you were spending in your day job, making it happen. Because that's also maybe the dream of the solopreneur is, hey, I'm going to do some work. I'll do the 4-hour work week, but I'll also be able to do all these side things. And that might be true. But if you're serious about it and you want to create consistency, you're going to need to put in enough work and have a process for yourself as if you were a full-on business or agency.
Yeah, I love that you pointed. I love that you pointed out that there are so many factors to take into consideration. It's not just a yes or no answer. So we have to look at a lot of things. We have to look ahead, see where we are now before we take such a decision. And I have one personal question about this as well. Can we start off as solopreneurs, or do we have to pass through working at different companies or agencies or anywhere else?
I think that it's important to have experience, and experience can mean different things for different people. But if you don't have the depth of experience, like I was talking about earlier, I have experience in operations of agencies, and I've seen all the different roles that play within a company culture. I can speak the language of business, and that comes from the depth of experience that I have. And so that puts me, a few steps in front of someone who's maybe new to the industry or who doesn't have that depth of experience. So no, you don't need to have all of that beforehand, but then you're going to need to be spending your time learning. And that's something that's really, really important to me. I work in the learning industry. I create learning experiences. And so if you're not going to have the depth of experience in other companies and other roles, then you need to be learning really, really hard. You need to be finding out how people talk. What are the pain points of the clients that I'm talking to? How can it feel like that I already understand their problems without having met them yet? So you just need to walk that extra road if you don't have the depth yet, but it's totally possible.
Yeah. So there's no perfect option or alternative. Each choice we decide to take, we'll have to cover it up in one way or another. So now, enough with the personal stuff, because I feel we're just invading your life right here. But the value you're providing is just amazing, man, and your transparency as well. But as a digital content expert, we all know for sure that content brings views or brings attention. But how can we specifically create content or look at it in a way that brings us sales or brings us clients or makes our business sustain itself?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. I think the first thing is doing it. So a lot of people feel overwhelmed when it comes to content creation, whatever the platform might be. They're just, I don't have something of value to say. People don't want to hear from me. I don't have the energy to be writing content. And so all of those barriers stop you from even doing the first step, which is just put content out. And so I would say the first thing that you need to get your mental hurdle over is just writing things, anything, like literally anything that interests you, just to build that muscle of content creation. And you don't need validation on that. As long as you put it out and it's somewhat interesting to you, there will be somebody else in the world that is also interested in that topic that'll find it useful. And so I want to just set that out there, that rest assured, if you put content out, it will be seen and you will get validation. And once you start to see how that starts to roll out, and you start to see how an audience is building and who makes up that audience and what questions they're asking you, you can start to refine your strategy. And that's the real key, that if you're wanting to use content as a way to build leads and to generate business, there's a couple of things you need to think about. So firstly, who are my customers and where do they hang out online? So there's no point. So for me, for example, I do a lot of business to business work. I work for companies to create content for them. So there's not a lot of sense for me to spend time on Facebook writing content, putting out videos where that's a personal space. That's more a business to consumer space. Whereas I spend a lot of my time on LinkedIn because that's where my customers are. And so I spend my time trying to figure out what questions do my customers have and how can I answer it for them in a creative narrative format. So I'm honing my skill. And I don't want to say, hire me, give me money, I want to be your next person. I'm saying, hey, are you struggling to get your message out? Are people struggling to learn in your company? And then they come to me. And that's the real clincher. If you use content correctly, instead of having to go out and sell all the time, whether it's online or in person, if people can authenticate that you are valid and that you are experienced and that you're good at what you do, people will find you. So that's the goal. That's the success measure. If people are starting to knock on your door that are real customers that are willing to pay, then you're doing well in the content game. So figure out who your customers are, find out where they're hanging out, and then deliver them value through the content that you write. And one last thing I'll say to that is, what does value mean in terms of content? It means insightful content and free. Like, so sometimes, for example, I might, in my solopreneurship venture, create an Excel sheet that calculates all my incoming invoices. It tracks what's been sent, what hasn't been sent, and gives me a view of my 6-month runway. That can be a template that I could give for free. I don't need to sell that. I don't need to prove something to someone. I can give that for free. And it just shows your market and your customer that you're serious and that you know what you're doing. So that's what insightful means. I understand your problem. And it also means I've got something of value that you can take away from engaging with me online.
Yes, I totally agree with this. And this is a beautiful answer. And you made me think of something. You mentioned that most of your content is on LinkedIn right now, the professional content related to work. So LinkedIn is not a heavy video platform. So by creating content, it doesn't have to be strictly video and us getting in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
true.
We can just keep going.
No, you raise a really good point. I think there's so much actual content out there for every platform. There's ways to game the algorithm as much as you can, without actually looking at the content itself. And interestingly, over the last 6 months, I've found that authentic written text form has been some of the best performing content that I put out. And I put out videos, I put out podcasts, I put out carousels, PDF carousels. I've tried all of it, and I'm continually trying and iterating on my content. But you're 100% right. I think the key for me is that, like I said, if you can provide value, it doesn't matter what format it comes in. And if there's different types of people like different types of content. For example, if you think about a podcast, I don't think there's a massive return of investment for podcasts because it's long format and you have to download it or you stream it and you need to have the time and the energy space. And not everybody likes podcasts. At the same time, 100%. Like me, I love podcasts. And so I listen to 2-hour, 3-hour podcasts sometimes. And that's where I get so much rich content. And so that's understanding my needs as a user. So I think, yes, sometimes video is great. Sometimes amazing graphics are great. But actually, if you can get into what does my audience want to hear about, then the format doesn't really make that much difference.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this question because we as entrepreneurship enthusiasts and people who want to get into this lifestyle think that content is video, or I have to get in front of the camera and talk. So we sometimes just consider it as a barrier and we just don't go for it. But now I'm really glad you cleared it up for us.
No,
Just like
totally.
right now, we have someone who hates to show their face, and I totally understand this. This is why I asked this question, because content does not have to strictly be video.
No, absolutely not. You know, and I think one of the things that I would want to say to anybody who's wanting to put themselves out there, put their business out there, get clients, is that it's about storytelling. And any format can be used to tell a story. An image can tell a story, or a video can tell a story. But the point is that you need to be making sure that there's a narrative behind your content. And you don't need to have your face associated with that. You know, my personal journey, putting my name on what I do, means that I have 100% accountability for everything that I do. And also it makes me very searchable. You know, if somebody says digital learning content, Cape Town, South Africa, they'll probably come across my name because I use my name, but you don't have to. But you do need to be telling stories, because it can't be transactional. You know, content is not supposed to be a transaction. It's supposed to be something that you would want to read or watch or listen to, because it entertains, because it's beautiful, because it's informative. And so, you know, just look at like how stories are told. If you want to be good at content, read books, listen to people that are good at telling stories.
Yeah. James, before we continue, give us 2 of your favorite books to read so we can get inspired to create content.
That's a great question. I love being asked that question. The thing is, I'm a prolific reader. I read so much, and across the spectrum of fiction and nonfiction. I think maybe two books off the top of my head. From a business and work perspective, I'm fascinated by the book Small Giants. I can't remember who the author is, but it's just all about being intentional about building companies, not necessarily for growth, not necessarily for scale, but it's a book that kind of like highlights, if you are serious about your business and you're passionate about what it is that you do in your business, you can do that for the rest of your life. You don't have to grow big. And I've been part of businesses that have scaled really quickly, maybe too quickly, and seen like the burn of that and some of the negative connotations that happen when you do that. So that book to me has been like a real like consolidation of some of the thoughts and feelings I've had as an employee and as a manager and as a leader. So that's a great one. And then from a fiction point of view, you know, I read fiction because it's an escape from the day to day, but it's also inspiration. It's something that I can be empathetic. I can hear about something that I would never have imagined. And so I've just finished the Farseer series by Robin Hobbs. It's a 9-book series, and it's brilliant. It's just It's one of the most human stories I've ever read, and it's, you know, it's got all the things you'd want in there, dragons and magic and all those things, but it's such a great way to immerse yourself in like a creative, imaginative space.
100%. And I've actually read about this, that the more weird stuff and out of the box stuff that we read or that we immerse ourselves with, the more creative we can get, because we use these things in our daily lives to like imagine stuff and make our ideas come to life. We have actually a very interesting question. Someone asked you, is there a specific formula for storytelling?
Is there a specific formula for storytelling? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think, you know, there's the classic hero's journey, which if you Google it, you'll find it's the story of meeting the character.
Can you repeat it so I can type it for everyone?
The hero's journey. If you type it into Google, you'll find it. It basically every story is broken up into these key characteristics, which is kind of engaging with the main character, seeing that main character move from the norm, face trials and tribulations, get guidance, fall into a place of like despair or hardship, and then triumph at the end. And so a story takes that up and down journey of falling in love and hardship and something good and something bad, you know. And it's not that every piece of content has to follow the full hero's journey, but the point is that it needs to connect with you. Those stories, whether it's The Hobbit or some other story that you love, it follows this thing of I love this main character, or I can recognize myself in this main character, and I want to see this person succeed. And there's some joy in seeing them overcome problems or situations. And it's the same in business content. You know, people face problems. And so the story is, hey, I understand your problem. Let me explain to you how I understand that problem. This is how I've seen other people get over that problem or come to a new place through that problem. And then you've won trust and you've got engagement because people can hear themselves in the story. And so those are kind of, you can swap the order around. You know, creative storytelling you can start with the achievement and end with the despair. It doesn't matter how you put those ingredients together, as long as the person who's seeing the content or who's engaging with it can see themselves in the story or in the content.
Yeah, this I did not expect such an insightful answer on this. And James, we usually hear that getting the first client is the toughest. How do we get a first client through content? Which is not something very common.
It's a good question. You know, in my experience, the clients that you get are the ones that are already in your network. And so, you know, my expectation if I were starting fresh or if I was advising someone would be, don't expect to have your first 2 to 5 to 10 customers come out of the blue. It's going to be someone who's a friend of a friend. It's going to be someone who you met. I had a client that I worked with as part of my job 3 years past, and they came back to me this year, now that I'm independent, to start a new conversation. So I would say content is really a way to awaken the world and your market to the fact that you're there. You know, I picture business and running entrepreneurship, you know, projects as being in a landscape of darkness, and you don't know who's around you or how many people there are. But when you put content out into the stratosphere, out into the web, it's like putting a light on, and suddenly everyone can see you standing out. And so the more you do that, the more pieces of content, the more value you bring, the brighter your light, and the more people will be drawn towards you. And so even things like blog posts or podcasts that you haven't thought about in, you know, 2 years, somebody might come across that piece of content and link it back to you and find you. So you need to be leaving those breadcrumbs wherever you are so that people can naturally find you, whether they know you or not. So maybe your first client might be somebody new, but in my experience, the people that trust you are the people that are willing to pay you to do things.
Yeah, this is a great way of looking at it. And by the way, guys, if you see me not looking at the screen or at James, it's because I'm taking notes, because this is crazy value right here. And I wanted to ask you something as well. After your first client, you want to get the ball rolling, you want to get regular clients, you want to make sure that you're going to make ends meet, you're going to be able to sustain yourself eventually. Does this, you just keep doing it on your network, or do you just start expanding outside of it?
Yeah. So what you want to do is use your first 1 or 2 clients to validate that you are trustworthy. And this all feeds in. So once you've started working with a couple of clients and you've got them, even if it's just a small project, even if you can convince a friend to give you a project and they pay you a small amount, it generates stories. And that's what we're talking about. You want to start saying, hey, I've worked for this project. This was the problem. This is the challenge that we faced. Here's what we did. Look what we did. And you can start to push that out. And there's validation there that you've worked with real people. They've paid you real money. There was real output, and you can tell the story. And so generate your first customers, even if it's very low pay, even if it's, you know, not in your wheelhouse and you feel uncomfortable, because that's the beginning of a journey of showing people what you're all about. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to find big clients that are going to give you exactly the kinds of work. It's a journey of moving closer and closer to that perfect combination of projects and tasks that you want to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. And another personal question for me, I create content. I've been creating content since 2019. I do podcasts, I do Instagram content, whatever. the case is. But what do we do, or what do I do when I reach a point where I feel stuck? Like I'm not regressing and I'm not going forward. I'm still creating content, but I don't feel like I'm moving. How do I like do a content shake up? Maybe I change my style. What do I do?
That's an interesting one. I think it depends on why you're putting content out in the first place. You know, for me, putting out content is a consequence of two things. One, it's a creative outlet for me personally. It's a way for me to scale out that which I'm learning and putting it out into the world. It's almost like journaling, but it's for me, it's a way to tell people what I'm doing. And the other, of course, is to grow a client base, grow my network, get credibility in the market. So I think if you're coming at it from that angle, the way to spice it up for yourself is to revisit that which your audience is looking at and doing. You know, I think the creativity is in, sometimes we get stuck in our own heads of what am I writing about? What should my next topic be? You know, what's the next thing on my content calendar? But I think we can revitalize ourselves sometimes when we put ourselves in the seat of our audience or the people that we're trying to reach and say, are there changes, you know, in what they're thinking about a year ago to now? You know, what are their concerns? You know, maybe even meeting with someone. You know, if you've been doing content, it's likely that you've been having conversations and you've got some feedback. You know, to actually meet with somebody you haven't met in person before and have a conversation with them might spring new ideas. So I think being curious, and that's one of the sort of pillars of my work and my approach to my career is curiosity. So if you take it from if you've operationalized it too much and it feels like it's just work, then you've gone astray. But just reignite that curiosity and look for people in your audience, watch movies, like pour into books, and whatever like kind of strikes a chord with you, write about it, put it into your content calendar. So just remain curious.
Yeah, just like you said, it always comes down to the why. Why do I do this, and why do my audience wants to even listen or hear or read? This is amazing. And we have another question for you, James. How can I get leads with content creation without sounding like a sellout?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I think there's a really interesting balance between telling stories and putting out interesting content and making a sale, right? Like you don't want to have to come in there and be sell too hard or make it sound like you are a sellout, like you're just putting content out there to win clients. That's not the game you want to play. But at the same time, if you're just putting out content and it's not leading anywhere, then you're kind of wasting your time in a sense. So for me, I think it's making sure that you stay in that Venn diagram of creative curiosity and like client and audience needs. And so for me, like a real good sense test is to say, is what I'm writing about and putting out there into the world genuinely of interest to me? Or am I trying to do something for someone else? Am I trying to prove something to someone else? Am I trying to make a sale? Because if it's the latter, then you need to reevaluate. Like you said, you need to see your why. It should feel to you like you're having a conversation with a friend or like you're journaling, because it's natural. It's the outflow of what you're learning. And I would say that if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or somebody who's trying to do something on your own, your job is to learn and to scale yourself and to move forward. And so if you're not poring over stuff, if you're not learning stuff all the time, if you're not processing all these thoughts and lessons, then you're not using that fuel to better yourself, to better your company. So if it feels authentic, you're on the right path. If you're making a pitch, just reevaluate and see why you're doing this in the first place.
That's a really interesting answer. And as we get to the last bits of this interview, I wanted to ask you, if we were to divide content creation into a few simple steps for the people here who want to start or who want to just like assess where they are now and how do they continue, what simple steps can we take to go through this journey?
So I'm a big proponent of design thinking and human-centered design. So for me, that's generally where I start. So the first thing I'll do, whether it's for myself or for clients, is look at the end user and ask questions about them and put together a profile. And a profile means like a high-level view of who this person is, their demographics, their motivators, their interests, their pain points, and even give that person a name. It might be like, the heavy hitter or the slouchy person, like just any name, but that captures the essence of that person. And then start to think, like, what's that person interested in? What's going to move that person forward? What's going to capture their interest? And once I've got, 2 or 3 different profiles like that, then I'll start to move towards something like a content calendar. And that's where you don't want to be too prescriptive, because it needs to be interesting to you. You need to actually enjoy doing this. So when you get into the content calendar phase, you want to start off with themes first. So what themes am I going to talk about that give me interest and that put forward what I do, but that also is interesting to those user profiles? And so you might get 2 or 3 different themes. For me, it's curiosity and learning is a theme, or entrepreneurship is a theme. And so I can start to then break those themes down into various topics. So then you get into more and more granular, and that's the traditional content calendar. You can start to put dates to it. You can start to track it once it's out there. You can say whether it's a video or an image. But if you work your way from the broad perspective of who am I talking to and who's my audience, down to my themes and then my topics, and then putting them into dates and platforms, that's really tangible ways to make sure that you've got like a good plan, and that you also don't have to be creative on the fly. It's really, really difficult to wake up one day and say, I'm going to write a post and then do that. You want to have topics that interest you, on a sheet somewhere, and you can just pick them out and type them in, use some tools to schedule it so that you don't have to do it right on the day. When the creativity wave hits, use it, and then schedule it for when it's relevant. So that's how I would do it.
Amazing. And the follow-up question, is it okay to diversify topics for someone who's aiming for an educational page, or do they just like have to stick for one thing only?
I think definitely, I think if you're harping on about the same things all the time, people will start to see through that and see that, this is not something this is just one piece of the things that you're thinking about. So definitely diversify. So for example, like curiosity and learning and entrepreneurship, those are very different themes that have different topics and interests, and different people even that would be interested to hear that. At the same time, they still are within the wheelhouse of what I do, because I talk to entrepreneurs about content and learning and curiosity. So you can see how those themes start to play together. So have a diverse set of themes and even platforms and topics, but they still need to relate to you somehow. It needs to have your flavor on it, so that it's not just a piece of content out on the internet.
Amazing, man. And here's the last question I wanted to ask you. Let's say you were dropped off in a random country. You don't know where. You have only one laptop and $500. What would you do? What business would you start? How would you just like establish your life?
That's really interesting. So I think 2 things. So no one can ever take away your knowledge and your experience. So, and that's valuable, so whether you're on a desert island or in your house, you've got a wealth of knowledge in your head. So I think that in any situation, I would like to be able to monetize my expertise, and there's lots of ways to do that. And it's something that I've been experimenting with over the last couple of months. I would create maybe an online course. Maybe it's a survival course in the desert.
Yeah.
And get people to pay for that. Maybe I would write articles. I would look for a company, potentially in a different with a different currencies, one that's stronger than the one on my island, and write articles that are just really creative and really good and get paid for that. But I mean, I think it's always, for me, it's always going to be using my skills and expertise to create interesting content and learning. Like that's what I do. I create videos, I create assessments, I create courses. And so I would just probably continue to do that. And the $500, probably, use it to buy a flare gun or something.
Yeah. I wanted to ask this question just to show everyone that you don't need a huge capital to start something. You can just go ahead and start with whatever you have.
Very good point.
I believe everyone here watching has an internet connection and has an internet connected device. So yeah. I think these are enough tools to start with. And James, I wanted to thank you so much for giving us all of your time and sharing your experience and giving us value. I enjoyed it. I took more than 3 pages worth of notes, and I hope everyone else benefited from this. And guys, before you leave, I promised you that I will share a link that will allow you to get a free cookie NFT. So I'm going to send a link in the chat box. It will be available for 5 minutes only, and only 5 people of you will be able to get the free NFT. So we're going to answer one last question, and I'm going to send the link in the chat box. So James, the last question today is, what did you start with in content creation?
So I'll give you a real example from what I did when I first started out. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the skills that I had, with the network that I had. And I was really interested in game design. So I started teaching myself how to use game design software, and actually created this really bad game that, you know, the little character could run left or right and jump. And once I'd created like a sort of low fidelity version of that, I used that tool that I mentioned earlier, Loom, to record myself talking about how I created this game. And that was one of my first pieces of content and it happened to be video format, but it didn't need to be. And I put that out on LinkedIn, and it was really just me talking about my learning experience. There was no game, there was no pitch, there was nothing for it. It was just that I was interested in, I wanted to show people what I was interested in. And that really created like an interesting dynamic, because it was about games, people from the gaming industry were able to see that and engage with it. People that I'd worked with in the past were thinking, why are you creating games? What's this about? And so we started conversations. And so it was just an outpouring of something that I was interested in, and I decided to post about it. And I would encourage anybody to do the same thing. You know, everyone's got different interests. People are fascinated about what you're learning. So just take what you're learning and make a post out of it.
This is amazing. And guys, you can, I'm going to share the link right now as I'm going to continue my talk. You can connect with James on LinkedIn. You can find his link in the description of this video that is live streaming right now on YouTube. So you can rewatch this as many times as you like. And you can find James' LinkedIn there. Feel free to connect, send him out a message, check out his posts, and add him to your network, because, you know, as he said, your network is your net worth. And James, I want to thank you again and hope to see you again sometime later.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that everybody enjoyed it, and looking forward to seeing everybody on LinkedIn and seeing some amazing posts coming up.
Thank you. Thank you, James.